Hey everyone, what's going on? It's 2 minutes to review. It's Matt.
And it's Zach.
Longest album review in under 2 minutes wins our little game here. You click the picture. They are back with another brand new album. The band that was taking over the world a few years ago. They're going to take over the world on the new one. Who knows? But it is the latest Starcatcher from Greta Van Fleet.
We meet again, Greta Van Fleet. For those of you who have been following us since day one, which is hard to believe almost 5 years ago at this point. Sorry to make you old, Matt. Thank you for your support. You will know that Matt and I don't have the fondest feelings for this band. Sorry if I'm giving some stuff away right away, but we've done our very first Am I Missing Something episode about Greta Van Fleet and its appeal, frankly. We've also were pretty critical, dare I say fair, although if you ask some of the diehard fans of Greta Van Fleet, we were not fair, but I actually think we gave them some flowers and cred on their last album, The Battle at Garden's Gate. Greta Van Fleet, to put it nicely, is one of probably the most polarizing bands in rock right now.
And why is that?
Well, Matt, do you remember the 70s?
Do I? Of course I don't. I wasn't there.
Well, neither was Greta Van Fleet, but if you listen to their music, they clearly do, and more so specifically have owned all of Led Zeppelin's catalog. Sorry, fans, I'm going to go right to it. They are very highly criticized for sounding almost a little too much like Led Zeppelin, like to the point where it's like, all right, what are you trying to do here? With each album, they keep getting, the diehard fans following them. They keep playing bigger and bigger stages throughout the years. And here we are, about to review album number 3, Starcatcher. And the big question is, does Greta Van Fleet finally expand their wings? Do they finally find their own voice and grow musically? Or do they continue to tread on the Led Zeppelin wave? That's the big question. Matt, I think it's about time we just get right into it. What do you think, bud?
Well, I would like to make one clarification, if I may.
Go ahead.
We are not counting Black Smoke Rising or From the Fires as actual albums. We are starting an Anthem. We're starting an Anthem of the Peaceful Army. Whoa. Just to clarify, it's the internet.
You're right. And we have plenty of comments on our episodes regarding Greta Van Fleet. Well, that would call us out. You're right. Thank you for clarifying that.
Internet gonna internet.
And I guess I should also, before we get started, give a little thank you to Lucky 13 Beard Co.
That's right. Lucky 13 Beer Co. been a sponsor with us pretty much since day one, as long as we've been doing Greta Van Fleet reviews. They are some of the best on the internet purveyors of fine beard balms and oils. And if you've ever wanted to try a beard balm or oil, because you've been curious, you've seen your friends try them, and you want to know what all the hype is about, get something a little unique, get something a little bit different from Lucky 13 Beard Co. because they've got, like I said, some of the best beard balms and oils out there, and they smell fantastic. We have our own with them. It's called the Lemmy, inspired by Lemmy from Motorhead, bourbon, tobacco, cola, and leather. It is probably not just because it's ours, but the best smelling beard balm and oil that I've ever smelled. So if you want to try it, head on over to Lucky13, beardco.com. If it's not your thing, don't worry about it. They got a ton of others that you can try. And we're even going to give you 10% off of anything that you put in your cart by using the code EFP10 at checkout. That is EFP10 at checkout. Lucky13, beardco.com.
And if you want to support us some more, go to our Linktree webpage where you'll find a link to our merch website. You'll find t-shirts, hats, hoodies, coffee mugs with our lovely little cool logo on it. Big thank you to those who already purchased those. Thank you, and hopefully more people buy some. Let us keep reviewing Greta Van Fleet. Matt, with that in mind, I know it's going to be a shocker, but I'd like to go first. I want to rip this Band-Aid off already. I have a lot of thoughts on this album.
Alrighty then.
Unsurprisingly, right?
Get ready to meet your master. 3, 2, 1. Greta Van Fleet.
All right. I'm going to shock you all. Let's start off with a little praise for Starcatcher. The song, The Falling Sky, is actually pretty kick-ass. And it's actually the first time that Greta Van Fleet has made me go, whoa, all right, cool. Like, it's got a little bit of a punch to it that I feel like the band's been lacking for the most part. And even songs like Frozen Light and The Archer, it almost sounds like the band's gained a little muscle over the past few years. There's just a little extra oomph to it that I think I've been critical of them for not having. But here's the sad truth, and it's going to get me a lot of hate from the diehard fans. I know. The majority album still sounds like Led Zeppelin Light. I'm sorry. I mean, but if anything, songs like Sacred the Thread, and Waited All Your Life, I'm sorry, but it just almost doubles down on that comparison. I made this comment when I reviewed the Battle at Garden's Gate, but I really feel like they just emphasize how like they just sound like they're producing songs for movie producers who are too cheap to buy the rights to actual Led Zeppelin songs for their 70s time period drama films. Like, oh, I want to have When the Levee Breaks in this scene, in this dramatic scene. Oh, but that's really expensive. Well, let's just get the Sacred the Thread song. Yeah, cool. So dare I say, yeah, there's some cool moments like The Falling Sky that I actually could hear myself going back to and listening. But in the end, Starcatcher really does not make me think anything more than Greta Van Fleet is just trying to be Led Zeppelin.
And we got a time star rating. See what I did there? Out of 5.
Son of a bitch. Well done. I am gonna give it 3 because, well, any praise I might have given them on the last album for going in the more 70s prog route instead of Led Zeppelin completely, they kind of lost of this. Like, I'm sorry, but like Sacred the Thread, that is literally a B-side Led Zeppelin song. I'm sorry, it is.
That's not a B-side. That's When the Levee Breaks, and that's it.
No, you know what? Yeah, thank you for saying that. Matt Gambra, ladies and gentlemen. But then you got songs like The Falling Sky and The Archer that go, all right, you know what? For the first time, I'm going to give this band more of my attention. I'm actually like intrigued. And it's the first time I felt that way since Greta Van Fleet really came to the scene, and ever since we started asking ourselves, am I missing something with this band? So I'm going to give it 3 stars. Matt,
all right.
Are you ready?
Let's do a thing.
3, 2, 1, go!
So I'm not going to mention that 70s band that he mentioned. We're going to go straight on pure review here. So what really bothers me about this album, and it's a criticism from start to finish, is the production. The production here, to me, is very shrill sounding, to the point where the vocals are very, very muddy throughout the entire album. And I know some people are going to say, well, that's what they're going for. I would like to understand the lyrics in a song. Sometimes, some people will criticize me for liking metal music. You can understand their vocals. And here, what ends up happening is when, when they put on that reverb, you don't need to put on that much reverb for Josh to sound good. Josh's vocals can stand on their own. I know that you're trying to go for that big sound, but you just don't need to do that. David Cobb, in producing this album, really should have thought less is more, because you don't need to, like I said, do that much to Greta Van Fleet. They've got the chops. They've got the ability to sing. They just need to be produced in the right way. And for being done at, I believe it was RCA Studios, and from a Grammy-winning producer, this doesn't sound like that. However, with the songwriting and the way that the songs are put together, they do sound pretty good, except for the production. There's many times throughout the album that you can hear a lot of sibilance on the drums and on Josh's voice, and when the echoes on things kind of play against each other, it just doesn't sound good. And some of the ideas that they put together on here, like Zach mentioned with The Falling Sky, I was actually getting into Indigo Streak until the production kind of got in the way. Frozen Light sounded pretty cool, and then they kind of wind the album down with Meeting the Master, and it's okay. I mean, it's just that the production, if there's anything about this album that holds it back from being better than it should be, it's the production.
Very interesting. Before I ask you some questions, what out of 5 stars would you give this?
I have to go 3.5.
So I'm a little fascinated. Well, 2 things. 1, I actually liked the production. I actually, for some reason, I thought
Ugh,
I actually kind of felt like it was a little meat and potato-y
no,
in a good way. I actually kind
nope.
of no, I thought it sounded pretty decent, dare I say. But it sounds like you actually liked the songs more than I did.
So let's put it this way, right? I listened to this album on 3 different sets of speakers. I have, and for all of the audio files that are out there that are going to criticize me, well, you didn't listen to it on good speakers. I have my Audio Engine S2 Pluses in front of me. I've got my Dre Beats headphones. I have my car stereo, which is probably the worst one that I have. And I have my Sennheiser Momentum 3s, I believe they're called, but the latest Sennheiser Momentum earbuds. I listened to this album on all of it, and not one of them could I get this thing to sound good on. The Fate of the Faithful sounds extremely washed out with the way that the vocals and the reverb that they're using on Josh's voice kind of play together. It just hits in all the wrong ways. And I'm not saying that to be like cool, like what the kids say. No, the way that the reverbs hit each other, it just doesn't sound good. At least to me. And I'm sure there's going to be tons of fans of this album that say I'm totally wrong. Great, I'm going to be totally wrong. But I just feel like everything kind of clashed in the wrong way. Indigo Streak, I was getting into it, and I really liked what they were doing. But then it sounds like they needed to pull it back just a little bit. The drums started to sound like they had like that drop off when you peak too high. And once again, all of the reverbs just started to clash again. So to leave the production aside for a minute, the songs, I feel like until you get to Sacred the Thread, where you need to call a spade a spade. I'm sorry. That's Led Zeppelin. Hands down. Outside of that, I feel like the songs are the furthest away from Zeppelin that they've been.
That's a hot take.
I think that this album from them could have leaned a little bit more into the Zeppelin side than it did, except for Sacred the Thread.
See, I disagree. I feel like I think they doubled down on the Zeppelin in this one. I think even Meeting the Master and Farewell for Now, even Runaway Blues, to me, if I almost can picture a movie producer going, oh, I really want to use Led Zeppelin's Rock and Roll in this thing. Oh, but we can't afford that. Oh, there's this song Runaway Blues by Greta Van Fleet. That'll do. I have to disagree with you on this one. To me, each band member, definitely tremendous performers. It still sounds like mediocre Led Zeppelin songs throughout this album.
Well,
and I think even more so than the last album. The last album, I felt like they were incorporating a lot, at least, yes, 70s still, but you saw them going into more of the Rush influence and some more of just the prog influence and kind of taking some steps away from Led Zeppelin. This one, it's like, all right, let's go back to that and just double down. To me, they could have called this album Double Down and we all would have gotten it.
No. So
yeah,
let's just talk about a huge missed opportunity with Runaway Blues, because it's 1 minute and 17 seconds. It's easily their shortest song. It's probably one of the most disappointing tracks to me, not because that it sounds bad or anything, but because they could have taken that idea and ran with it. And I thought it would have been a really great song. It just, the moment that I started to really get into it, the volume fader started to go down. Like, what? Why are we winding this down? Oh, this is the 1 minute and 17 second song. I thought it was really interesting up until that point. And
I think you're giving it too much credit. I think to me, that's like, oh, this is their rock and roll Led Zeppelin's like.
But rock and roll was a fully fleshed out thing. This wasn't.
I would argue that most of the credit, that's a problem with Greta Van Fleet. It's mostly not fleshed out.
No,
this is not a.
I think I'm going to call you out. You're just bashing that for bashing it.
Like, no, I'm not just bashing that for bashing
it's not. The ideas on the songs are put together, and they're put together in a way that sounds good, and it makes sense when they're there. No matter how Zeppelin you think it sounds, they're still there. They still make sense, and they still sound good. When it comes to Runaway Blues, it's an idea that they were probably just playing around with in the studio, and then somebody recorded it and then just started to drop the fader when they were like, all right, we're kind of done here. Like, you could have put some more thought into that, and I feel like it would have been a great transition from some of the slower songs that they have on the album.
I'll give you this. some of these songs this is definitely a more focused sounding album than the Battle at Garden's Gate. But to say it's that well thought, put together, again, The Falling Sky, kick-ass song. Like, I'm actually really impressed by that song in particular. And Frozen Light and The Archer, I'm like, okay, cool, we're in the right direction here. The rest, to give it any more praise than a young band trying to sound like Led Zeppelin, I think, and no, I'm not just bashing it for the sake of bashing it, even though a lot of commenters, as I'm talking right now, are commenting saying so. No, I'm not just bashing it for the sake of bashing it. And I would actually even give this album more credit for the production. I was actually, like I said, more impressed with how it sounded a little bit more clear, at least the guitar tone. And yeah, there's some questionable fades here and there, especially with Runaway Blues, but I think you and I both agree that that's just not a good song.
I don't know what version of this you're listening to, because I heard something completely different when it came to that. I heard echoes crashing together. Josh was getting lost in the middle of everything. I couldn't understand what he was saying. That's part of where, I'm starting to dive into like 2-star territory on a review. I did that with The Offspring. That last album that they put out was completely unlistenable.
That was just a bad album.
Right. Well,
for various reasons.
Right. I mean, that album, like at least you could understand them, but the songs are just that bad on that album. Well, this one,
you wish you could understand them on that one.
Yeah. The the way that they have their musicianship on here, no matter how copycat some people may think it sounds, and I'm saying it that way on purpose because I'm trying not to compare them to another band. I'm trying to let Greta Van Fleet stand on their own.
Say their name, damn it.
Bad Company.
Yeah, actually. Aerosmith?
No. But there are a few moments on here where I do kind of feel like they're kind of blending into Rival Sons territory. That's not a bad thing.
Hold on now. Mm-hmm. That's giving this band a little bit too much credit. In fact, I was going to say, to those who really want to listen to a good rock and roll band or a good modern band that really delves into the 70s territory of rock, go listen to Rival Sons. And go listen to our album review of Dark Fighter to understand why. And that's all I'll say about that. Because to me, I'll go one step further. What Greta Van Fleet is trying to do, I feel like Rival Sons does 10 times better.
I will not argue with that. However, I still think that there is something here if the production's fixed. And as much as I want to leave them on their own, the fact that they blatantly, when the levee breaks, is Sacred the Threads opening. I'm sorry. That's like, guys, I'm doing my best here. You're not helping me out.
In Matt's defense, I'm shocked for how much he's really trying his best. Like, he's being very nice and generous. So please believe us, that's when the levee breaks.
They're echoing and droning on Indigo Streak. I mean, The Falling Sky, the production is better, but it's only one song. Like, Waited All Your Life. It does sound good. Here's when it really gets bad, is when Josh lays into his vocals. They don't need to do much to make these guys, like I said, sound good. They do sound good on their own. But I guess, a mostly country / pop producer is going to try to do maybe more than the average. And this is what happened. I can't explain it. That's just me.
Before we find out who between the two of us gave the longest review in under 2 minutes. So as I mentioned earlier, almost 5 years ago, we hosted our very first episode of Am I Missing Something, where we just dissected Greta Van Fleet in general. It's been almost 5 years now, Matt. 2 albums since we've recorded that episode. Matt, do you now get Greta Van Fleet? Or do you still feel like you're missing something?
I reserve the right to answer this question until after the criticism of our review of this album.
Say that one more time. I'm a little confused about what you just said there.
I reserve the right to answer that question until after we see the commentary that we get about this album. I'm very curious because outside of me mentioning the name of the band that they're always compared to only twice, and I'm doing it in the best way possible, I want to see what other people say about our review now. That's just a nice way of saying comment, because I really want to know what you think about this album. Am I crazy for thinking that the production on this album is awful? and it could have been better.
I'll put it like this. I will be shocked if there is not a lot of people who come to the defense of anything about this album. I think, you know what? I'll answer my own question. Like I said, these guys are talented, and I appreciate how a young band like this is still able to play as well as they do at their instruments. I think I'm still mind-boggled at how blind a lot of their fans follow them and how in denial so many seem to be about the band's influences. And instead of trying to prove everyone wrong, they just keep producing songs that literally sound like Led Zeppelin light.
None of this matters.
That's
the only
my
thing
line.
that really matters.
That's my
is the
line.
times.
You're taking all of my lines today.
So, Zach, what's my time?
Your time. Well, Matt, unfortunately, you came in at 2 minutes and 8 seconds. You went over.
That's okay. That's okay.
So, Matt, what was my time?
Your time was the winning 1 minute and 41 seconds.
Wowzer. Wowie, wowie, wowzer. Zach won again. I admit it, not that I haven't won that many often, and sometimes I'm not proud of the reviews I win, but here we are. Huzzah. I'm about to say, do you agree with Matt and I on our views on Greta Van Fleet Starcatcher? I'm sure a lot of you don't. And guess what? We have a lot of social media platforms that you can let us know what you think. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at Epic Footnote. And I'm sure you already know, but we're also on YouTube. Listen to more episodes like this, including our Am I Missing Something episode about Greta Van Fleet and our previous review of the Battle at Garden's Gate at Epic Footnote, also for YouTube channel. Let us know what you think. And I know I'm being a little playful here, but Matt and I actually really do want you to tell us what you think of this album. Tell us if you disagree, and tell us why you disagree with us, or what you do agree. Come in with an open mind, and let's have an actual discussion about Starcatcher. Thanks for listening, and thank you once again to Lucky 13 Beard Co.
Log on to lucky13beardco.com and make sure that you use the code EFP10 at checkout for whatever you decide you want to pick up. You get your 10% off lucky13beardco.com.
And as I mentioned before, if you go to our Linktree page, you'll find a link to our merch page where you can buy t-shirts, coffee mugs, hats, hoodies with our logo on it. Maybe you just want to buy some of it and burn it to show your protest against our review of Greta Van Fleet Starcatcher.
Yeah,
that's
buy
fine.
It, burn it.
Or support us and just wear it and let your friends know that you listen to two guys talk a little too long about Greta Van Fleet.
Or buy the t-shirt, put a Greta Van Fleet patch on it, stick it to the man.
You know what? That sounds awesome. You know what? Here's a deal. If you buy one of our t-shirts or hoodies or hats and you sew a Greta Van Fleet patch on it, I will personally call you and say thank you. I will even buy you a bottle of our Lucky 13 Beard Co. beard oil. How about that? Do it. Let's do it. That'll be fun, right? Thanks so much for listening, and we hope you join us for another episode, as well as buy the merch so that with the Greta Van Fleet patch on it, so I can buy you a bottle of our beard oil.
What he said. See ya.